Warning, the following podcast contains irreverent humor, uneducated and exceptionally nerdy opinions, potential cursing, and plenty of love for the prequels. If any of the preceding offends you, please turn off your computer immediately, and may the Force be with you.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf-herder!
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
You're tuned in to the Nerfherder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate, featuring your hosts, JT. Maybe that's who R2 saves. R2 has, of all the myriad tools that he has in his chest, he's got a dent puller. AJ.
I was so hoping this was going to be a family show, too.
Oh, my God. Steve.
Because Alderaan was one planet, maybe we got 5 of them.
On this episode of the Nerfherder Council, we discuss the prequels versus Episode 7. We touch on the tonality of the original 6 movies versus the new movie, and then we hit the special editions and a lot of cursing and editing for Steve. This is the Nerfherder Council. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerfherder Council. I am your host, JT. With me, as always, is my brother AJ, our buddy Steve, and on fourth mic tonight, the Moof Milker mic, got my buddy Jeff Walgren. He is actually the genesis of tonight's topic because there was a little Facebook post by our buddy Chris Aiken, and Jeff made a comment that I could not disagree with more. And as it turns out, I think Steve might disagree with me as well. So
we'll see.
Well, according to what we were talking about before we started recording, among a lot of things we were talking about before we started recording, none of which can be repeated here. It sounds to me like you might be on Jeff's side on this one. So
we'll see. Basically,
the statement is, and this will be the topic for tonight, it's in relation to Episode 7. And Jeff made the statement that Episode 7 feels more like Star Wars to him than any of the prequel movies ever did. And I completely disagree.
I agree. I'm leaving.
I knew it. See? I knew you're going to be on his side. So
that's because my side is the right side.
Oh, here we go. Don't you mean the light side?
Well, yes, that is
it's
the
okay.
right side.
I'll insert laughter in that in post. It'll be all right.
we're gonna have a laugh track like a 70s sitcom or something. But why don't you start off and explain why you feel that way? Like, what makes it so? What makes the new movie feel more like a George Lucas movie than the prequels?
Well, the biggest thing to me is just all the effects and the props and the scenery. All of it was a lot. It just looked especially like the originals. I mean, you have like all the targeting computers were very analog looking from like that era of sci-fi films, and all the practical effects they used. I mean, there were a number of things that could have been CGI that they just went all out and used practical effects. Most notably BB-8. BB-8 is a real thing. He's a practical effect.
Most of it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they obviously touched it up a little bit, but
there are scenes when he's completely CG. So
yeah, but I'm probably about 80% of the movie he's actually there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and they could have easily just CGI'd his ass butt in there.
Well, see, here's the thing. I give you that. It is a good point. It looks a lot more like the original trilogy, but I think the feel of the movie wasn't the same as one of the previous 6 movies. Like if you were to ask me and say of all 7 movies, if you had to rate them in order of which feels like a Star Wars movie, Episode 7 would be the last. I mean, I think that even starts with the opening scene, because one of the big all the hoopla surrounding Episode 3, part of it was, Anakin getting turned into a crispy critter that contributed to it having a PG-13 rating, but also the whole scene where, you know, it implies that he kills all the children, like he kills all the younglings, and that was some big taboo. Oh my God, that can't happen in Star Wars. Well, within the first 3 minutes of the new movie, they kill the entire village. He's like, "What, sir? What about the villages? Kill them all." Like you're just killing innocents immediately. You've got blood smeared on a stormtrooper helmet. It had a different feel to me.
Yeah, but that's a village of adults. That's not children. So you can do whatever you want to adults. You can chop them into a million different pieces. They're responsible for themselves. But kids, nah, that's when you get into trouble with the MPAA.
Well, yeah. I just think it's the slaughter of innocents on a mass scale. I mean, again, it was so taboo in episode 3 that was one of the reasons a lot of parents were kind of upset with that movie.
They blew up a whole planet in episode 4.
All you saw was a big thing getting blown up. You didn't see, like, you know, I mean, actually, now that you mention that, you could even bring that excuse up, because they blew up an entire planet in episode 7. But this time you see the people's faces that are getting nuked.
All right. Here's another thing, though. If we're talking about blowing stuff up, being killing innocent people, who's to say any of those stormtroopers are necessarily guilty? They're just doing their job. When Luke blows up the Death Star, how many people do you think he kills that might not have been necessarily guilty?
Oh, he's going all clerks on you now.
Okay, yeah, but again, I think that kind of plays into my side of this argument about what feels more like a Star Wars movie. It's like that's a much more realistic type of it's a grittier, more realistic way of looking at it, and that's what Episode 7 presents. That wasn't a part of the other movies. It was more fantastic. It was much more, you know. I'm trying to think of the word.
Use your words.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the right word to use, but fantastic is the, you know, I don't mean that was fantastic, but it was fantasy. It was, you know, it was more
like mystical and
yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to describe it.
Innocent, youthful.
Yeah, it's not as grounded. And I think that was what was different for me, is that this, I mean, and it was awesome in its presentation. It was kind of cool to see Star Wars that way, but it just didn't feel like the other movies to me. And I kind of missed that. Like, that was something that we talked about on one of the prior episodes, was that one of my main concerns was that the new movie wouldn't feel like the old ones. And it didn't to me. It did have that little bit of, you know, this is different, almost like it's an EU story instead of an actual Star Wars movie.
Now, here's another argument as to why I personally think it feels more like the classics than the prequels. You have these new characters, Rey and Finn and Poe Dameron, and they all have various aspects that I feel like reflect the original 3, Luke, Han, and Leia. Poe, for example, when he's being interrogated by Kylo towards the beginning of the movie, he's just sarcastic as all heck. And to me, that was a very Han Solo situation. If Han Solo was being interrogated by Vader like that, I feel like he'd respond literally identically.
Well, we don't really know, because they never even asked him any questions.
This is true, but
that's Empire. That's Empire, not Episode 4. So it's different.
Is that not an original?
I'm talking original trilogy.
I thought you said original movie. I'm sorry.
No, original trilogy.
Never mind.
OT, boss. Come on, loosen up.
Sorry. I was going
4, 5, 6. 4, 5, 6.
That's what I get for looking at the mic levels while I'm supposed to be listening. No, I think in that aspect that's true, and I kind of got that too, because I that was something that I kind of took out of the movie, was the whole Han Solo is kind of like the new Poe Dameron type of thing, or other way around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, I am all over the place tonight. What the hell is wrong with me?
I don't know, man. You brought a knife to a gunfight on this one.
I know. Tell me about it. But I got that. It's just, I wish I could explain it, because
I wish you could too.
Yeah, it's just George Lucas. I think the best way to explain it is something that Steven Spielberg said in the Empire of Dreams documentary, and he said that, you know, that George Lucas makes George Lucas pictures, and he said, you know, like Scorsese makes Scorsese films, and, you know, each director has their own style, and I think that George Lucas's style is what's missing from this movie. I think if he had directed it, it would, and still have all the same story elements and production and everything, I think it would feel completely different.
So green screen was missing.
They still had green screen, dude. It's not like
yeah, there's a lot of green screen. That's beside the point. I feel like, though,
it was blue.
Okay,
New
well,
technology.
Yeah, right.
same difference. Another thing, George Lucas didn't direct the original ones.
Well, he did.
We
he
did
directed
episode 4.
He directed 4. Okay. But
Yeah.
still, 5 and 6, I feel like, are the ones that really brought the original trilogy into what it became. I feel like 4 was
Episode
kind
5
of...
for sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. 5 was, for me personally, the Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, if only one of the Star Wars movies was, like, there, I would pick 5.
Oh, you
5,
could,
5 was like, if I just had to pick one Star Wars movie and the rest got completely trashed, 5 would be the one I'd keep.
yeah, you could see major changes between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back with the way the same sets were lit and colored. I mean, the Falcon especially, you know, they dialed up the colors. The look of the Falcon in the new movie definitely comes from Empire Strikes Back. You know, you've got those green lights in the hallway. It seems like they colored up the pads on the walls a little bit. Like there's just more color in general around the interior of the Falcon, where it was more a straight, like it almost looked like a theatrical set, and I mean theatrical like a stage production.
Yeah.
In
They
episode
really-
4, where it was just like one white incandescent light kind of spotted on the scene, and that was it.
Yeah, and
there
they
wasn't
really-
any mood lighting at all.
They weathered it really well too, to really show that the Falcon was 30 years older than the last time we saw it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and that was really portrayed well through the interior of the ship.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that. I mean, I do think that aesthetically, it definitely looks like the original trilogy. I mean, that
Even like-
that beyond a shadow of a doubt. But there's something about the tone of the movie that was, and even something as small as something that AJ and I talked about, the opening crawl, the music doesn't hit as hard. I mean, even that is a little bit different, and it was.
I've heard a lot of people mention that lately now too.
Yeah, it's like the first downbeat just doesn't hit. You know, it goes dun, 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 dun. You know, like it doesn't come in, and that struck me immediately. I'm like, okay, and it may be minor, but in a way, to me, it kind of set the tone. And I've seen the movie 6 times now. I'll be seeing it a 7th time on Saturday. And each of the 6 times I've left, like, I love the movie. It just doesn't feel like it mixes with the other 6. It just has a different tone to it. And it's a directorial thing. Directorial.
You know, I think that works though, because each of the trilogies has their own flavor. People complain that the prequels didn't feel like the original trilogy, and your argument is, well, it can't. It's a new movie in a new decade, so it's going to have a different feel because the technology's improved, the actors are different, the storyline is in a different place in the timeline. So I'm perfectly fine with this not feeling like the others yet, or at least not quite sitting in with the other 6, because you've got an entirely new generation, you've got a new timeline going on, new director. I mean, everything that makes a Star Wars film or any film have life has changed. It's a turnover, but they're still dealing with those legacy characters, at least to tie it to the previous trilogy. So let this, I feel like in hindsight, this thing will tie in just fine as we get used to it. It's just because it's new territory and we're always a little uncomfortable with that.
And it's like we were talking about on the first episode, that it's like you said, everything's different now, and now you, instead of having George Lucas as the end all be all of this, you're talking to the mouse at the top of the mountaintop now. So, you know, Disney is definitely going to have a creative control at the end of this, of either tone it down because Disney's kid friendly or whatever, you know, what have you. So, I mean, it's like we said that first episode, you know, it's not the same Star Wars anymore. You know, it's going to be, you know, this whole new thing, be it for a new generation, be it because of Disney or what have you. But it's just, we're, like AJ said, we're going to get used to it, especially by the end of, you know, maybe even the next movie, you know, since we got Rogue One and then episode 8, you know, by the time episode 8 is done, I think we're going to be kind of used to the general direction of where they're trying to head with this thing.
I see. I would disagree with that, and the reason that I say that is because for a lot of people, it didn't happen with the prequels. I mean, a lot of people decided that they hated episode 1. They still saw us up at episode 2, but then they also said, well, you know, this sucks too, and then they went into episode 3 going, well, the other one sucked, and I'm going into episode 8 with an open mind, but I also think that I might fall under that same classification of fan that kind of judges the next 2 based on the first one, and I don't want to do that, but it's just it just didn't grab me as something that just fit seamlessly into the Star Wars universe. It was very close. So I don't want it to make it sound like that it's something totally different, and it feels like a Twilight movie instead of a Star Wars movie or something. You know what I mean?
Nobody was sparkling.
Yeah.
So we're good on that.
The droids were pretty shiny, but no,
They just got a little polish, just a little polish. That's all.
right?
That red arm, man.
Ugh. Here we go with that again. But it was that little bit off, and I don't know if it's going to be possible for me to get past that, because the different directors they're not George Lucas. They have a different style. I mean, honestly, the movie that I think might get close to it is going to be episode 9, because Colin Trevorrow did Jurassic World, and that to me felt like seamless in the Jurassic Park universe. So I'm thinking that he might be able to tap into that George Lucas kind of a vibe.
Well, if he can do Spielberg, maybe he can do Lucas.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that part of your bias is knowing that it's a different director? You just have that preconceived notion. Like if this exact movie came out, but it said EP George Lucas, would you be like, oh, okay, whatever's new is just what George wanted to put in?
No, because I don't have a bias. It just felt different to me. I wish I could put my finger on it, but it's like there's something missing. There's just something, and I think
I know what it is. It's a live Han Solo at the end of the movie.
I hate you so much. Why don't you let me grieve?
Yeah, it's
the body's not even cold, man.
Yeah, it's a heartbeat for the smuggler. That's what's missing.
What's missing is a round section in the middle of Han Solo's chest.
You're all a bunch of.
Yeah, what's missing is his lungs.
No, there's just a chunk of his lungs that are missing.
He's
Just
not
a chunk.
dead. It went next to his arm and in between his arm and his side. He's coming back. We've been over this.
Han Solo with his old blue eyes. One blue this way, one blue that way.
You've had enough time to grieve. This is okay now.
It is never okay.
No, it is. You have to joke it. You have to get over it sooner or later. So it starts with joking around with it.
Like in the Robot Chickens, when he's like, oh, fine, just let me know when it'll be okay to joke about it. It'll never be okay.
Well, here's my question. Harrison Ford is already confirmed for episode 8. Now, how is that going to play out? I mean, he's not a known Force user, so he's probably not going to be a Forced ghost.
That's a flashback.
They don't do a lot of flashbacks in Star Wars, though.
Well, they have to do them in this one because there's so many unanswered questions.
Maybe he's just going to be a corpse with a giant hole in his chest.
Maybe it's just, they open on his funeral, and he's just sitting there with like a giant hole just missing from the middle.
I'm going to get up out of that movie theater, I swear to God.
They just have chip dip inside the hole in his chest. They're all.
It's like they use him to hold a spinach dip. He's got the big round loaf of pumpernickel in there.
No, it'd probably be guacamole. Guacamole and tortilla chips.
While R2's rolling around with a plate of tortilla chips on his head.
Yeah, they bust out the beverage cart from the sail barge just one more time.
So that's what Han Solo is reduced to. Chip dip.
Oh, we gotta stop giving Disney ideas for their movies.
Yeah, right.
We better get residuals for this.
Okay, anyway, jumping back onto the topic, AJ brought up a point that it with the generations, the different trilogy and the different generations, different characters, different story, and I feel like this story picks up better off after 6 than 3 led into 4. I feel like at the end of 3, we get the general, okay, well, everyone shipped off to where they are in the start of 4, but that's all we get. and we see we see Vader become Vader for all of 30 seconds.
What else can you do, though? I mean, that begs the question. I mean, it's a good point, but what else were they going to do? I mean, at that point, the story that they were telling was done. He's Vader, and the kids are born. What do you want to see him, like, see the babies take their first steps? And it's going to be like
that's what they're filling in
talking.
with Rebels right now, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they had that to do it. But I mean, seriously, it's like, I mean, what are they going to show?
I just feel like it could have been done better. I feel like it was very generic and, single-cheeked. Half-assed.
Thank you for clarifying.
Well played.
Yes.
I had no idea where that was going.
It just felt like it was like kind of thrown together. Like, okay, well, there's Vader, there's the kids, they're named, they're shipped off. I feel like it didn't have the emotional impact at the end that it could have had with. I mean, I feel like they could have played off Anakin finding out about Padme dying a lot more. Where it hits you in the heart. You know what I mean?
Like a lightsaber to your chest?
Exactly. Exactly.
I hate you so damn much, dude. See, the reason I would disagree with that is because if you really think about it, it was kind of a brilliant ending. Because to my thinking, there's really nowhere else you can go with the story. Okay, he's Darth Vader. You know he's going to go kill people. So to just show him doing all sorts of evil crap is going to be redundant. I mean, the babies, they're babies. What are they going to do? But they end with that shot of... No, they don't end with that. They end with the shot of the binary sunset with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru holding Luke with the binary sunset. And it kind of mimics the episode 4 thing, and it intimates there's a new hope. Like the babies are this new hope, and it goes into the next movie is A New Hope. So I think it kind of was like foreshadowing what was to come. It was that little ray of hope at the end of all this just dark side, evil, bad, this, that, and the other with, Anakin turning and all the Jedi being slaughtered and everything. So I thought, I've always thought that was a really cool way to do it because it was this tiny little thing, but it did foreshadow what was to come in the original trilogy.
I think it was more of a bit of fan service. I mean, you don't need to see all those characters get dropped into their starting positions for episode 4, but as far as in terms of serving the story, but in terms of serving the audience wants all those pieces right where they belong for the start of the next movie.
But you can't do that. You
Wait,
can't.
you're arguing against yourself now. I'm saying that's why they had to do it that way.
No, I thought you were talking about how he said he wants to see more of what they were doing after the end of episode 3. Like, you can't.
I'm not saying after. I'm just saying they could have expanded on other things. I feel like they should have done, maybe not after episode where it ended with the characters as in the children or where they landed. I'm thinking more Darth Vader. I feel like the last thing we see of Darth Vader in the original trilogy, or the prequel trilogy, is him screaming no. And
hey, he folds his arms, man.
He has a little hissy fit about Padme dying, right? That's the last thing we pretty much see in the prequels with Darth Vader. And then he comes into episode 4 as this just evil tyrant that just does stuff because he can. He walks into this ship to get Leia and the I think it was a map or something. It's been a while since I've seen the episode 4. But
See,
she has the
now you're
coordinates.
getting episode 4 confused with episode 7. It was the Death Star plans.
The Death Star plans, that's what it was. The plans for the Death Star. Sorry.
Don't worry, they'll catch you up this year on how all that happened.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But I feel like they could have done just a little more than, oh, boo-hoo, Padme's dead, and I'm going to throw some stuff around and make a big hissy fit. I feel like we should have seen more evil and less whiny baby in Darth Vader.
And again, I would disagree because they had already set up his turn to the dark side as Padme's death being the reason, or trying to save her from death being the reason. So his ultimate reason for turning to the dark side was trying to save her from dying. So he realized, at that point, that's the end of the story for Darth Vader in that particular context, is that, well, she died and you did it. So now you're super evil. After that, it's just going to be him stomping around getting pissy about stuff, and that's always been the thing that I really love the most about episode 3 was how they made him turn into Darth Vader. It wasn't just, I think I'm going to be a bad guy. Like he actually had motivation for it that was more than I just feel like being an intergalactic, you know. So I've always liked that. So in my opinion, it ended where it should have, you know, and
they were seriously harping on the tragedy of Darth Vader in that movie. That's why they left it at a sad note instead of an angry note.
Yeah. And honestly, when you watch all the movies together, like if you watch them 1 through 6 in that order, it really comes across like that too, because you kind of get that feeling, like you said, he is a different character in episode 4 from the end of episode 3, but you understand that with the passage of 17, 18 years, however many years it was, at that point, I mean, he really had nothing to live for, so it was just this descent into not giving a damn. So, you know, and I like that, and I thought that the prequels did a really good job of establishing that he wasn't just a jerk. He wasn't some intergalactic bully. He was just conflicted, I thought. And, you know, the new movie, Kylo Ren was supposed to be the new Vader, so I'm interested to see where they take him, because to me, it wasn't fleshed out nearly as much as it was. You know, he didn't feel like one of the characters in terms of depth that I got out of the prequels, I thought.
Oh,
and I'm definitely in a minority on that, I know, but
okay, I got to step in on this one. Now, you're judging the Kylo Ren of episode 7 against the Darth Vader of episodes 1 through 6. If you take Vader
1 through 3.
If you take Vader, I'm saying you
technically
had
Anakin Skywalker.
I'm saying you had 6 movies to develop that character through Anakin to Vader. And
I'm
his
not
redemption.
talking about 4, 5, and 6. I'm talking about 1, 2, and 3.
And
Anakin Vader.
Well, can I interject something here? In episode 4, what do we know about Vader?
Thank you. That's where I was going.
I mean, if we're just because the whole
But I'm not
topic
using that as an example. That's what I'm saying.
Well, let me finish my statement here. The whole topic of today's show is what blends better with the original trilogy. Episode 7, where it picks up, or the prequel trilogy. And I feel like if we're talking about Kylo Ren right now, I feel like he fits perfectly into the template that they had for Darth Vader if we're looking at just episode 4. And I feel like in episode 8, they'll be able to develop him a lot more, just as they did Vader in episode 5.
Totally. We were covering that. Yeah, you know, Kylo comes off as a whiny little prick in 7, but we really think, like, we came to that conclusion of
I feel like
that he's
killing Han Solo is going to be the thing, because he even said when he's talking to Darth Vader's helmet, maybe praying to Vader or whatever, that he's feeling that urge to go back to the light. And I feel like killing his father was the thing that pushes him over the edge.
No, I mean, that was exactly what it was for. You know, I have to do something. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do it, and that was obviously killing Han Solo. I mean, that was we discussed that. That's exactly what it was for, and it was, you know, it's cool. I just something about it, you know. Anakin as a character in 1, 2, and 3, and again, I'm not talking about 4, 5, and 6 because your point is valid. I can't take one character in one movie against a character that has 6 movies to develop. But I'm talking about Anakin and Vader in episodes 1, 2, and 3. It seemed like a more believable character, I suppose. It was a more fleshed out character in terms of motivation because, you know, Kylo Ren, he's already a Force user. He knows that he's the son of a Jedi. So,
yeah, but you're comparing the motivations of a character over the span of a trilogy versus what you find out in any one of those movies.
I just think it's that Kylo Ren's like, well, I want to be bad, but I kind of feel like I should be good. Whereas Anakin Skywalker was like, where the hell do I belong? Like he doesn't even have a father. And the one father figure he does have dies pretty much as soon as he meets him. And then he's, you know, conflicted about, you know, emotions for Padme when he's not supposed to be feeling that because Jedi aren't allowed. You know, they just got to keep their in their hands or whatever. But, you know, it just seemed like there was more to the idea of the character of Anakin than there is to Kylo Ren right now.
Well, again, we're not comparing the prequels and 7. We're comparing the prequels to the original trilogy and 7 to the original trilogy.
No. The whole point of this was the prequels to Episode 7.
Yeah, but even the character of Anakin was informed by what was already told about Darth Vader in the original trilogy. So you're not starting from a clean slate in 1, 2, or 3 like you are in Episode 4. So the only fair comparison is Vader in 4 to Kylo Ren in 7. And I think you get probably more characterization of Kylo Ren in this than you do about Vader in Episode 4.
That I would agree with, because Vader was just a bad guy. He was just ultimate evil guy.
Yeah, you heard
Kylo
that he was
Ren-
once this other dude who wasn't a bad guy, but that's all you knew. You didn't have any idea why he turned or anything.
I still think that the Kylo Ren character, at least right now, it's just, well, I want to be bad, but I have good tugging on me. It's just a a black and white good evil thing, whereas the Anakin character in episodes 1, 2, and 3 was a lot deeper than that to me.
And I feel like they can and they most likely will get deeper with that as they go into 8 and 9. I feel like this is more just laying the groundwork for what Kylo Ren is going to do.
Yeah, to look at where the characters are in their path, Anakin, especially in 2 and 3, I would say that you've got more of a starting point there, so you can tell a deeper story. Whereas with Kylo Ren in Episode 7 is where Anakin was in Episode 2, I would say. So if there was an episode between 6 and 7 where you actually saw Ben Solo at the Academy, at the Jedi Academy with Luke, then you would see a true starting point that you could compare to Episode 1 with Anakin.
Yeah, that's not bad. And I think, to your point, if I was to say anything would be like Anakin in Episode 2, it would actually be what you just said, of something between 6 and 7. Because I think Kylo Ren is already a lot closer to the middle of, or even the end of Episode 3, where in terms of like where Anakin was at the end of Episode 3 or the middle. I think Kylo Ren's already there because he's so, steeped in the dark side. He's conflicted, but not really. He's like, I'm bad, but sometimes I feel good, and I got to cut that out. He gets shot in the side or whatever after he kills Han Solo, and he's punching himself to feel pain to bring more power from the dark side. So I think he's way further along the path. So I think it'd be closer to him. Kylo Ren between Episode 6 and 7 would be like Anakin in Attack of the Clones.
And I also want to throw this in here that with Anakin versus Kylo Ren, I feel like it's kind of the flips of the coin, different sides of the coin. I feel like Anakin was at the point in the prequels where he wants to be good and he feels like he is good and is a Jedi, but he's just feeling this pull from Palpatine to come to the dark side, and Palpatine's kind of giving him this, he's seducing him to the dark side, as to where it is kind of like the Force in Kylo Ren would be doing the opposite of that in Episode 7. He feels these things, inside of him, deep inside, saying, come back to the light. And I feel like it's literally just the reverse of Anakin in the general prequels.
I wonder, as we're talking, I kind of had a thought that I wonder if part of the reason that I feel like the prequels feel a lot more, like Star Wars than Episode 7 is because Episode 7 is, a lot of it is rehashed from Episode 4. So I feel like it was kind of somebody remaking the other movie.
It's definitely an homage.
I really think that that's part of it for me, because I remember sitting there the first time going, well, I've seen this movie before, kind of. And I think that kind of took away from the experience, because at least with the prequels, it was an original story. It was okay, well, it was something completely new in the Star Wars universe, whereas this new movie really isn't right now.
Well, at the same time of that, it is a new story. It's just, it uses a lot of elements of the original trilogy.
Doesn't it bother you? Does that bother you? Because it bothered me.
It doesn't bother me. I feel like it's one of those things that helps people who weren't really into the prequels. I feel like it helps pull them closer to Episode 7. I also feel like it does bring that, it closes that gap a little bit as far as the feel of the movie. When you have those elements of the opening on a desert planet and, all these, the various sets and everything that were identical almost to the original trilogy, just kind of modernized. I feel like every even the story elements of like, you know, it's a very similar story to episode 4. And even you can, parts of episode 5 are in there too, the whole struggle with, you know, the parent, son, whatever. And I feel like that helped bring it together with the original trilogy. You know, it's not a note-for-note remake. It's just a, like AJ said, there's a lot of homage. There's a lot of, you know, bringing in elements that helped make Star Wars when it was new.
I think it gets close to being a note-for-note at times, dangerously, because I haven't sat down and done this, because I feel like I'll be one of those a-hole fans that just completely destroyed and continues to destroy the prequels at every turn, like Simon Pegg. I feel like I'll be one of those fans if I sit down and do it, but part of me really feels like if you were to sit down and write the major plot points of episode 4 and back it up with the major plot points of episode 7, it would be real damn close. Because in my mind I can picture the stuff, so I just wonder if you back it all up, that if it'll actually like play out that way. And I think that's what plays into it, is in terms of my opinion being that the prequels feel more like Star Wars than this new one. The new one feels almost like someone's interpretation of a George Lucas movie. It's like an EU novel. It's like the Thrawn trilogy compared to the original trilogy for me.
So for you, it'd be like, let's say Van Halen putting out, like Van Halen doing this David Lee Roth album, Different Kind of Truth. That compared to someone doing a note-for-note reproduction of Van Halen or Van Halen 2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, so it might actually come out as a closer version of what came before, but because it's just redoing what was done before instead of doing something else by the original person, it doesn't feel as genuine to you.
Yeah, the feel and the tone just aren't quite the same. I mean, it's, you know, and honestly, that's probably the very best example you can use is the musical example, and especially for me with the Van Halen example, because I've heard Van Halen covers that are awesome, but they're that
if it's
little
not
bit
Van
off.
Halen playing Van Halen, then it's not Van Halen.
Yeah, it's not Eddie Van Halen playing guitar, just like this one doesn't feel like George Lucas making Star Wars.
Yeah, but I think that's a masterstroke on their part. JJ said, and I don't think anyone from the crew has ever refuted the fact that they did pull from the original trilogy for source material. You know, JJ said something to the effect of, you have to take a step backward in order to move forward. They deliberately kind of took all the beats that they needed to from the original trilogy and remixed them into a new version to grab the younger audience, to hook them into what anchors the Star Wars universe. And now that they've got them hooked, now they can go off in their own direction because everybody's on board.
And see, I don't like that. I don't care for that. To me, that's just going, well, you know, it's a move. It may.
I think episode 7 is a nostalgia piece, really. Jeff, what do you think about that?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I agree that it is very much a nostalgia piece, and it is very much modernizing what was originally episode 4 to bring a new audience into it, as where the prequel trilogy was just kind of laying down some groundwork for the original trilogy. And I feel like a lot of the prequel trilogy was just George Lucas off as to, oh, now we have all this technology, let's play with it.
That's all Star Wars has ever been.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
but I
true.
feel-
That's a hallmark.
But I feel like the prequels were like really overly, like, just, I feel like from what I saw and what I can remember, with George Lucas doing the prequels, I feel like the main reason he did them was the advances in technology, just to say, oh, we can make this so much prettier. And in opening up this the prequel universe, he also did the same thing where he re-edited the original trilogy, 7 or 8 billion times now?
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I mean, when I watch Star Wars, I want to watch Star Wars. I watched it on DVD because the DVD special editions had the second disc that had the original theatrical release.
Horrible cuts. They look like garbage.
The video quality is not that good, that is true. But it is the original movie. The only difference is it's the sound has been mastered, and it's the audio track from the Laserdisc edition.
See, now that's another thing that I completely disagree with. Is all this hate for the special editions drives me nuts. it's still Star Wars. They didn't change the story. I get into this with everybody. George Lucas raped my childhood. F you. That's bullshit. Because it's the same damn movie.
It is not.
Yes, it is.
You are
it is
making
not.
so
Yes, it
much
is.
work for poor Steve over here in post.
Well, hey, this is one thing
I'm
that
sorry,
really,
dude.
It really pisses me off. It's the same movie.
It is-
Did Obi-Wan Kenobi survive episode 4?
No.
Did Boba Fett die in episode 5 instead of episode 6?
No.
Did the Emperor survive? Everything's the same. It's just extra graphics here and there. That's
That is-
all it is.
I disagree. The biggest thing, and I'm going to bring up the biggest cliche in Star Wars arguments history.
This is the dumbest thing ever. Go ahead.
Han shot first.
Who gives a damn?
Oh,
Who cares?
Because Greedo never even shot, and that changes the whole atmosphere of that scene.
It happens so fast, nobody notices.
I-
People don't notice that.
If you watch them, like if you have the original cut on one screen and the remaster on another screen, and you start them on the same frame a couple seconds beforehand, it is a completely different feel if you watch them side by side.
If you have somebody that just starts out watching episode 4, the special edition, Han Solo is the exact character to them as he is to us. That one little 3-second laser blast doesn't mean a damn thing. I will argue that till the day I die.
It softens his character.
The logic, okay, you could say that, but I think it's crap.
yeah. I think there's some bits of the story that are hurt by the special editions. I don't need that.
Such as?
Docking Bay 94 does not need to exist. I don't like that Jabba, never have, and I think it weakens his reveal in Return of the Jedi by being shown in Episode 4. Same with Boba Fett. He doesn't need to be there. And the fact that there are 3 other Rhodians dressed just like Greedo is just confusing.
To me, that's so minor. Again, it doesn't change the story. It's just added graphics. It didn't change anything for me.
The scene itself doesn't even play out right because Jabba was a human when they filmed it, and then they made him a slug in Return of the Jedi, so then they had to shoehorn in this digital version over top. And now Han's line of, "You're a wonderful human being." Yeah, it's supposed to be a dig at Jabba, but it doesn't really come off right.
If I'm going to make
that,
one...
and every time he circles around him, he steps on his tail.
Yeah, that little bit of slapstick, but that is kind of a George Lucas thing.
But they had to do that out of necessity.
Right.
I agree, but it's not necessity because that scene was not in Episode 4.
Yes, it was filmed for it. They just cut it out.
But it was not in the original cut. It was not in Episode 4. It was
I-
a deleted scene.
If I'm going to make one concession on this argument, I will concede that one because, yeah, it's kind of superfluous. I mean, it adds some background to the whole, well, I got to go pay off a debt, and all this other stuff, and, why Jabba the Hutt wants him so bad and why, talks about him like that in Episode 6. Fine. But it still doesn't affect the story. Everything still happens that happens in the original cuts. It's not different. It doesn't matter if the door to Jabba's palace is way bigger. That doesn't affect anything.
So why do it?
Why not? Who cares?
Because it doesn't matter. Why are you going to go back and
It's
re-edit
his-
something to put in crap that doesn't matter?
It's his movie. It's how he initially saw it in his head, and so he wanted it to look like it looked in his head.
Well, if he wanted it to look like that, he should have waited until the technology was available to make it look like that, or just not make it at all.
He's not going to wait 20 years to make a movie just because he's like, well, there's no computers.
Well, then he shouldn't have made it. Or he should have left it alone. Either which way.
Now, I think one of the strengths of the original trilogy is that they did work on limited resources and budget, so they had to find other things to tell the story with instead of just grandiose visual effects.
Well, exactly, and the story's still there. That's the thing. It's not like he changed the outcome of anything. And you know what's going to be funny is when they finally do release the original cuts, because it's going to happen. Disney's going to do that.
Oh yeah, they're all about money, and that's a piggy bank right there.
Oh,
for 'em.
hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason that they haven't done it is because they have the rights to all 6 movies except for Episode 4. There's something with, what is it, like 20
Fox.
Is it Fox? Yeah. It's like, that's the only one that's independently owned or something. So anyway, I'll bet you there's going to be a lot of people that when they see those old cuts of the movie, one of their reactions is going to be, this seems kind of empty. People are going to have that reaction because they're not used to seeing all that stuff, filled in. And I really think they are.
yeah, that could be true. But I still think that a lot of the stuff that they shoehorned in, as a moviegoer, it's so obvious because it doesn't blend well. You're talking about late hell, mid-90s computer graphics inserted into footage that's 20 years older than that. It just doesn't blend. And then you're like, okay, what the hell am I watching here? Because I've got, I've got this weird, awkward, early-gen CG character, like a pre-Jar Jar, which Jar Jar is brilliant, by the way. So that's one thing about the prequels I can defend, is that he looks great. And that was a technological marvel that he even came off properly. But
yeah, visually, I will agree. As the character goes, that's another story.
But you get crap like Jedi rocks inserted into Jabba's
Thank
palace.
you for pulling that up.
And you get, what's that, what's the new singer's name alongside Size Noodles? Whatever, where he's got like the drool string coming off his stuff and he goes right up on the camera.
Yeah, it looks dumb.
Droopy?
No, not Droopy McCool. Don't you rip on Droopy McCool, man. That dude's my boy. But yeah, the way they chose to insert the digital stuff in a lot of ways was strictly a way of showing off. Like the scene didn't get filmed that way. So when you have a character run up to the camera and show you the back of his molars all of a sudden, you're like, what? This is clearly not part of the movie.
I just don't understand why people have to have such a hair up their ass about it, though. Who cares?
Also, when you brought up that Jedi Rocks thing,
Don't mess with perfection. That's why.
That, and there's also a bit where the Twi'leks are dancing, and there's a nip slip in the original cut, and they cut that out, and that just ruins the whole mood.
True.
I didn't know there was a nip slip. Really?
When you when you don't see that green, it just ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, Ula was letting it hang out, and George is like, nope.
I had no idea that was ever in there.
That's because you watch the stupid remastered with all the CGI
I
effects.
never had the option to watch the other ones at home. I'd only seen them in the theaters, man. And
Original release or not, with Disney owning that, there's no way that's going to be in.
Oh, they'll
the
edit
new
that
cuts.
out. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
That's so
I'm sure.
gone.
That's something they should keep, though.
No, it's
to see, just to see.
Because then they got to slap an R on the thing, even though it's a re-release. Don't
Nah, they won't.
I don't think so. And also, it's literally all of 5 seconds that you see it, if not less.
It's going to be like one of those Victoria's Secret catalogs where they just Photoshop out the nipple. So it really gets disturbing to look at this boob that doesn't have anything on top of it.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, it is a space boob, so technically they might not have nipples. What if nipples on Twi'leks are like where their kidneys are?
Maybe that's why they wear the headphones and stuff like over their what would be their ears, is because that's actually their nipples.
Yeah. Like a Twi'lek boob is just like a big round thing that you mess around with. But the actual nipple, like for milking babies and stuff, is by their ears.
Ooh, that could be true.
Would that get annoying if your nipples were by your ears? Because when the kid's suckling, all you get is in your ear the whole time.
Oh, yeah. That'll be just like our mic checks, you you'd be sitting down to dinner or trying to watch some Jeopardy after, and you just...
Anybody who doesn't like noises like that just was grossed out. But yeah, that's all right. So we've discussed Twi'lek boobs and feeding a child through a nipple behind your ear. Back on topic here.
Wait, that wasn't the topic?
Yeah.
That wasn't the topic? My bad.
Did we pull that out of the Vader bucket of topics? Was that
No.
random poodoo or what? No, the story to me is completely unaffected, and some of the graphics look dumb, but I also don't think it's as extreme a difference as you do in terms of saying it doesn't blend, because I will bet that you don't know that the dewback scene, this "Look, sir, droids," that whole thing is completely refilmed in 1996.
I actually did know that, and you could very easily tell.
You cannot.
I can.
You are so full of crap, dude. How can you tell?
When you've seen the original theatrical release as many times as I have...
How have you seen the original theatrical release?
I have it on DVD. It exists on DVD. I have it.
That's true.
No, okay.
They
here.
have when the special editions were released.
I call bullshit.
Look it up. When the special editions were released, there was a limited special.
No,
edition.
I know you have it. I'm not saying that. I'm calling bullshit on the fact that you said, you could so easily tell. No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
Jeff, every release of that film, theatrically and on home video, has been different in some way. They've played with the audio mix. They've played with the timing of scenes, the editing.
I understand.
So they're all special editions in a way.
But what I'm saying is that scene with the dewbacks, you can tell that the camera quality, it's ridiculous. You can tell that it's different.
I gotta see that on Blu-ray now. I have a feeling they probably cleaned that up a lot better for the Blu-ray.
The only reason you can tell it's different is because they have the added dewbacks in it. But if you were to just take that part out of it, you can't tell that it's different acting and different actors and everything. That's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, it's got an extra dewback or two in there, but it's not. They didn't do a whole different thing. It's not like there's all of a sudden a stormtrooper doing a backflip through the scene, you know, like doing reverse cartwheels or something.
But you can tell even like the desert and the sky behind it and everything. You can tell it's different.
I disagree. I
mean, it's very subtle, but you can tell if you're looking for it.
Well, where did they film that extra scene? Did they actually go back to Tunisia for that, or did they do that as a pickup in like Arizona or something?
I think it was a pickup in. It might have been Arizona. It's actually if you have the digital, I think it's on the special features of the Blu-ray set, but I know that if you have them digitally, like the release for tablets and stuff like that, it's one of the special features for episode 4. It's called Anatomy of a Dewback, and it explains all this stuff because they lost the original negatives and stuff, and it took them forever to find it. So they redo this and redo that, and it goes through that whole scene. It's kind of like a smaller version of In a Minute in a way.
Oh, okay. See, I wonder with all these nitpicking things, like Jeff, you know your stuff, so obviously you're going to be right on what you're saying. I wonder if anyone would care about this stuff if they didn't publicize that it was different. It's like the George Lucas argument on episode 7. Like, if you didn't know that it wasn't George Lucas doing it, would you have as much of a problem with it? And same thing, like, if you didn't know that was a pickup shot, would you have a problem with it?
I actually thought about that this morning. It's funny you mentioned that because I'll piggyback on that. When everybody complains about the CG in the prequels, if they wouldn't have said we did all this stuff with a computer, would people have complained about how it looked? Because it seemed like it was the in vogue thing to do, like, oh yeah, I hate the CG, oh, it's all computerized. But if you didn't tell people that, they'd be like, man, this looks really cool. It's all crisp and clean, and man, this looks a lot nicer than the, you know what I mean?
What's crazy is how much stuff they actually did practically that you'd assume was digital. Like, in that, you've seen all the special features on the prequels, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen In a Minute?
Yes.
So, like, Mustafar, you would assume that a lava planet, they'd be like, well, let's just CG the crap out of that, not build a miniature, light it, and then go film a volcano in Italy
yeah, right.
and mat that in. Like, wow, that's something that could have just been done in a computer, lickety-split, and instead they decided to go out and spend all this time and money to do it practically.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like that paid off. And that scene itself, I felt was, if we break these movies down scene by scene, I feel like in the prequels, that scene was the closest to feeling like the original trilogy.
Really?
Just mostly because of that. I mean, 3/4 of the original, each prequel trilogy was filmed on a blue screen. 3/4 of each movie, easily.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff where they could have just built a set for a simple close-up dialogue shot, and instead they chose to mat it all in. But,
yeah.
It's funny that you say that scene of all of them feels more like the original trilogy, though, because you've got...
From a visual standpoint.
Well, that's
from a
what
visual
I'm saying.
standpoint.
Like, you never saw anything like that in the original trilogy whatsoever. Except for having some lightsabers in the hands of Jedi. Like, there was never a lava planet. There was never, energy shields or any of that stuff going on.
I think he probably means it looked the least digital.
Yes. Like,
there was so much digital on it.
But it doesn't look like it.
I'm saying as far as all the other scenes, even if we're looking at the whole prequel trilogy or just episode 3, all the other major scenes were so CGI'd to crap that it felt digital.
I think they probably took their time on that one, and that's why, because a lot of those easier scenes do look very digital, and I think they allocated their resources where it needed to be. They knew that was like the marquee piece of that film. So they're like, we're going to spend our time and money on this. And you know what? If Anakin and Obi-Wan are talking and it looks a little fake, all right. That's cool. But I think that goes to your point about episode 7 feeling like more like the original trilogy, because I've seen the behind the scenes stuff that they posted online now, and there's so much that is computer generated in this, but it's so good now, you just can't tell. So it blends so much more seamlessly, whereas, especially in the early 2000s when computer graphics were really coming into their own, the directors wanted to call attention to it. They wanted you to know that, hey, we did this digitally because we're cool and we're new and we're with it. Now that kind of sheen has come off the technology, and it's just another tool in the toolbox.
And I'll also say this about episode 7. Even the stuff that was digital and computer generated, it was still largely based on an actual set.
Yeah, was there anything that you guys can think of that was purely digital in terms of where there was an actual character involved. Because even the stuff that's got CG drop-ins, I don't remember seeing any shots behind the scenes of just a bunch of people running around a blue set.
Yeah, there was a bunch of that stuff. When they had to go and cut in Attack of the Clones, when they had to cut in the scene in the droid factory.
Episode 7 I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
Yeah,
you meant
episode 7.
I'm sorry. I actually didn't watch the behind the scenes stuff yet because I was afraid of it ruining plot points. So I haven't seen the behind the scenes yet. Now, when the Blu-ray comes out and there's all sorts of special features, I of course will memorize that so
Yes.
that I can,
So you can win trivias at the bar later.
Aluminum
Oh, yeah.
Falcons.
exactly. So the Aluminum Falcons can remain undefeated here. But
Hey, that was easy money right there.
dude, that was good. That was good. I thought we kicked ass on that. That was
That was a close win, man.
actually it really was not.
You know,
Ironically,
we really glossed over this. I didn't realize we had another member of the Aluminum Falcons with us
yeah.
tonight.
Well, first of all, what we're talking about, since we discussed this in a dry run, Jeff and I were members of a Star Wars trivia team back in December at a bar out in Lakewood, Ohio called SideQuest, which is awesome. Highly recommend you guys go
Oh,
there.
absolutely. Go there whenever you can.
Yes.
And then some.
right?
Watch out for the Tatooine sunrise, though. That thing is pain.
Ugh. Well, I had the smoky bourbon thing or whatever that actually had like mesquite smoke in it, and it was awesome. But
Oh, that was Alderaan on the Rocks, I think they called that?
yeah, it was great. But no, it was a Star Wars trivia contest. Then you get a team of up to you and 5 buddies, so it was up to 6 people. And
Yeah.
Steve and Jeff and I, and my wife and my cousin, and our buddy Mike Karlovic were out there. And we actually ended up winning. There was a guy and his wife who was in the lead the entire time.
And he was ahead of us. Going into this last round, I have to cut in. We were in, 3rd place between this 7th and last round?
We were tied. Yeah,
We were tied for 3rd place.
yeah.
And the guy who was in first at that point was ahead of us.
By 3 points.
Oh, no, it was more than that.
It was 3 points.
At that point?
Yeah, it was 3 points because we ended up winning by 11. It was like a 14-point swing because what ended up happening was the final round was
It was all bonus features
it was
and
all
behind
bonus
the scenes
feature stuff. Yeah, it was behind the scenes stuff, and one of my little claims to fame is that I'm a complete monstrous nerd for behind the scenes knowledge. So when they
Guatemala won it for us.
yeah, they asked what was it? It was they gave us 4 planets in the Star Wars universe,
And they asked
you
what country they were
Yeah, you had to
filmed
name
in.
what country they were filmed in, and I was the only person that got all 4 of them.
Yes.
And I think you had the other 3 because you knew Hoth was Norway.
Yes.
You knew that.
I knew Tunisia because everyone knows that.
Yeah, everyone knows that. Yeah,
And I knew Italy.
Yeah, Italy from
From
Mustafar,
Mustafar.
because of that volcano that erupted.
And then we had the debate about,
we had said Argentina. I think my cousin said Argentina,
yeah.
and then I was
And you
like,
changed it to Guatemala
Yeah, I
last
was
second?
like, for some reason Guatemala kept jumping into my head, and I was like, right as I was walking our answer sheet up, I'm like, I really think it could be Guatemala.
Like,
And
literally,
so
if you would have
crossed-
changed it a second later, it would have been an
Yeah.
illegal change.
But when I looked at our scores, because it turns out this was a nationwide thing, we actually had one of the highest scores of any team in the country.
In the country?
Yeah, this was done like over 25 different cities, because apparently it's by a company called Geeks Who Drink,
Yeah.
and so we had one of the highest scores in the country for a winning team. But anyways, like, short story long, yeah, Jeff was actually on the team, so his knowledge is fairly well up there along with mine. But back to the original point, I haven't watched the behind the scenes of episode 7 yet because I was afraid if I saw something in those that I would ruin a plot point for myself in the movie. So yeah, so forget my whole point about the blue screen droid factory and Attack of the Clones. Back to as you were.
The 2 Jews got off. Sorry, that was History of the World by Mel Brooks, in case anyone doesn't know their 70s comedy cinema.
Judas, have you tried the soup? It's delicious. But
Push the malt wine, we're stuck with it.
I can't get any good help today. So anyways, what were you saying about now everything being blue screen? Are you talking about in episode 7?
No. We're talking about between the prequel trilogy and episode 7, the Mustafar scene in the prequel trilogy. I feel like had a very original trilogy feel because so much of that what was CGI in there looked so natural.
So AJ, what was your point about something being all blue screen? Were you
The
saying
original or
you
the
don't think
prequel
anything?
trilogy? The prequel trilogy was so digital.
Everything, every shot that they've released online that was a behind the scenes footage. There's a good side by side comparison on YouTube somewhere. We'll have to pull it up and put it on our website. We'll tweet out the link. But it shows the actual scenes being filmed, and then it shows, the finished shot. And I don't recall seeing a single one that was an entirely blue screen set. There was some practical piece that was then blended with the digital later on.
Yeah, in every scene that I can specifically think of right now, yeah.
Well, again, I didn't see it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing I could say about the digital effects in the new movie, I mean, they look phenomenal, but never once did I look at it and go, "Oh yeah, that's totally a computer that they did that with." Like,
well, but
and
I
then
think,
when you go into the prequel trilogy, even when they redid those and redid the CGI in those in 2009 or 10,
they redid it for the Blu-ray. They touched them up.
they have touched up the prequels. I thought
Yes.
they kind
Yeah.
of left those alone.
Yeah, but
No,
remember,
they touched them up for the Blu-ray, and even then, you can tell even in the touched-up versions, a lot of stuff is just so digital looking.
Oh, episode 2, the first scene when they're in the Chancellor's office, and you've got the Twi'leks in the background. Their skin color is so neon jump off the screen saturated. I mean, the whole set is digital, but I mean the colors and everything. It does not look like a physical set at all. They did not get the lighting or the color temperature right on any of that stuff.
I never noticed that. Maybe it's just because going in anytime I go to the movies, I suspend disbelief, and it's like I just go in there. I'm like, okay, this is the universe. This is how it looks. I'm not going, well, that doesn't look like it was, recorded in Parma or something like that. I just accept that that's how it is, so it doesn't really bother me as
Well,
much.
the thing for me, I do a lot of art, and I do a lot of digital work on like Photoshop and other stuff, graphic design, whatever. And so I can kind of see these things better than a lot of people can because I've done a lot of stuff in that arena. So when I watch these prequel trilogies, I can point out to you any single frame that you pause it on. I can point out what's there and what's digital like that.
Yeah, that's pretty easy stuff. It's like when we're standing at a concert together and we can listen to crap that's getting played on the stage and go, "Oh yeah, that one string sounds out of tune on that guy's bass guitar."
Yeah, frame of
It's the
rep.
same concept.
Yeah.
You're
It's
actually-
the same thing. Like if you're doing that job there, like
And then you take
I buy
someone
that. Yeah.
You take someone who's never played a note of music in their life and put them in a rock concert or whatever. They're not going to know how crappy it sounds.
Yeah, they're just gonna
gonna
say
be-
it sounds awesome.
Because it's loud and awesome and they're jumping around and drinking beer and having a grand old time.
There's been many a times where John himself has come off the stage and asked me, like, "Hey, did I sound flat on that?" And I'm like, "Oh no," like, because I can pick all that apart. I can listen to just a guitar or just a bass or whatever. So yeah, if you're doing that work, is fun, whatever it is, and you watch those movies, I bet you can pick any garbage out and go, yeah, that shouldn't be there. That
and I
doesn't
feel like-
look right, whatever.
I feel like having that background is also a helping point with the dewback scene that we brought up earlier. Like, I'm probably one of very few people who could point out how different it looks, just because I have that history with working with digital media.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate then. Let's take the Rathtar scene. How did you feel about that? Clearly, that's something they could not have done in the original trilogy era.
No, and I feel like that was something that it was adding a new element. I feel like a lot of stuff was in episode 7, it was new. There was a lot of stuff that it just wasn't in prequels, original, extended universe, anywhere. And I feel like a lot of that scene in particular was something that they just brought in to freshen it up based on the point that we had earlier about how much of a rehash of episode 4 it was. And I feel like that scene helps separate from making it a remake of episode 4.
So it's more like a callback to the prequels in a way, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying as much that. I'm saying it's more a way to differentiate from, so that it's less obvious that it's such a rehash of episode 4.
I don't know if I buy that, because then if they're doing that, I think that that basically means that what you're saying is they knew they were ripping off episode 4 so much that they purposely put parts in there to make it look like they weren't trying to do that as much.
You know what that scene really felt like to me? It felt like a comic book come to life. That's the sort of thing, like, they always wrote,
yes.
You know, if they didn't have to actually figure out how to get it in a movie, they would use that kind of a thing, like, you know, you hear about a Gundark, for example. And,
right.
and they didn't bother showing a Gundark until they got to the Clone Wars series, because when it's in CG, it's a lot easier than trying to figure out how you're going to do a 30-foot-tall alien on a live-action set. So they threw that in because it's one of those scenes you could imagine happening between movies in the original trilogy, because you hear about them going on other adventures that happen off screen, and they finally had the ability to show one on screen. So that's why they just, you know, threw in this giant tentacled teeth monster thing and, you know, had some fun with it. Besides, that scene did give us one classic moment that I absolutely love, and that is the Han Solo punch. That's not the Han Solo punch. That's the Indiana Jones punch.
Yeah, it was.
That was great.
Well,
Han
is there
Solo-
really a difference between the two characters other than the name?
Well, when did Han Solo ever throw a punch like that in Star Wars?
Wow.
But it worked for me because I'm still seeing Harrison Ford, so I'm still seeing Indiana Jones, so I'm still hearing the punch sound, and I'm going, yeah, that's classic.
He just needs a whip now.
Hey, all I know is
Actually, he needs lungs and a heart and a sternum.
Are we
solar plexus.
Are we going to do this every time? Are you just? Are you
Until
hope
you
so.
get over it, yes.
I'm not going to get over it.
Well, then it's going to stay in here.
Well, you better get your post note ready because it fucking sucks that Han Solo is dead. So
Hey, man.
edit that out, you prick.
Hey, he might not be
Why
dead.
not?
Okay?
I got 20 other ones to do.
Look, he might not be dead. Let me give you a ray of hope. Remember, he survived a nuclear blast in a refrigerator.
Exactly. And while we're on the subject of editing, by the way, Mr. Editor over there, the more you bring up Han Solo dying, the more F-bombs I'm putting in here for you to edit out. So we're going to make a trade. You leave me alone about Han Solo, and I'll talk cleanly. Well, maybe not.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not gonna
Who am I
happen.
kidding?
I'm not going to edit it, so I don't care. I mean, and Han Solo's not going to have a heartbeat again, so I really don't care.
Besides, it gave us one of the best follows on Twitter in years, and that's Dead Han Solo.
Those just don't amuse me, like emo Kylo Ren. It's like a one-trick pony joke. I'm like, all right.
That's why it's funny.
I'm sorry, but I love there was like, I don't know, it was probably about a 20 or 30 tweet exchange between emo Kylo Ren and lonely Luke Skywalker, and they're just digging into each other. I thought it was hilarious. If anyone hasn't seen it, you got to find it because it's hilarious.
Yeah, I follow both of them on Twitter on my personal account, and I saw that firsthand that day when that was happening. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I first came across emo Kylo Ren. I was like, what the hell is this? And I laughed like the first 3-4 times, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, they're just rehashing all the. All right. It's a whiny kid, only it's Kylo Ren. I get it. Okay. Like,
I bought my black coat at Hoth Topic.
That's just a bad pun, man. that's not Kylo Ren. That's a bad pun.
Yeah, but that gets used in so many places. The Battle on Hoth playset from Lego a couple of years ago had General Regan, and he came with a hot dog. And I guarantee you it's because they wanted you to call it a Hoth dog.
You've got to be kidding me. It came with a hot dog?
Yes, it's right up there on the shelves. You can check it out.
Oh, I'm gonna go look
Echo
at
Base
this.
has a good selection of Lego Star Wars sets. It's sitting right there. This is exactly why Lego Admiral Akbar in the new Resistance Troop Transporter set comes with a coffee mug, because for some reason they gave him a coffee mug in the A-Wing set. Why Admiral Akbar was in a Lego A-Wing set, I don't know. And why they gave him a coffee mug in the process, we don't know. But we got it in the troop transport now, too.
It's a frap!
By the way, I just saw that hot dog. It doesn't have a bun.
Yeah, it's just a giant sausage.
It's like a Red Hot.
It's great.
It's like a natural casing Red Hot.
It's great. Right now we've got Boba Fett manning the grill, actually. You notice that. He's got the spatula.
Yeah, he's got a little spatula in his hand and a hot dog in the other.
Okay, so people hate on the prequels, but they're okay with Lego Boba Fett manning a grill with a Polish Red Hot.
Hey, I did that on my own. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's because Lego isn't canon.
Actually, is it?
No, absolutely not, which is a damn good thing. Has anyone seen Droid Tales on Cartoon Network?
Oh, please don't bring that up.
What are we going to talk about the Christmas episode next, dude?
No. Droid Tales is a new series they put out prior to Force Awakens to get kids up to speed on the events of the first 6 movies. And the first thing they did was just rip the prequels to shreds on that. I mean, it starts the whole premise starts, John. It starts with C-3PO in Ewok Village recounting the saga to date. Like he was telling the story so far in Return of the Jedi. Well, he goes back and he starts with episode 1 and he says, the taxation of trade routes was in dispute. And then everybody goes to sleep. Like, that's the first joke that they do when they're talking about episode 1. And then it just goes from there. They rip on Jar Jar. Jar Jar gets blown up, like 4 or 5 times in the first episode?
Oh, if not more.
Yeah, it's Disney and anybody associated with that show basically taking the prequels and saying, you know what, George, F you, it sucks.
Because F you, it sucks.
No, it does not suck.
Here's my thing. Here's my thing with the prequels, and we might have to break this podcast into 2 because I'm going to pick my own fight with John right here and right now, and probably a lot of our listeners too.
Go for
I
it.
don't think the prequels were necessary at all, and here is why.
I'm going to get popcorn.
Because the prequels are all based around how Anakin fell to the dark side and became Darth Vader, thus making the Vader character tragic. I don't need to see the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. I thought Darth Vader's character arc was perfectly complete in 4, 5, and 6. Nowhere in there did I go, well, wait, how did he become Vader? No, it was good enough that you start off with an asshole in episode 4, and then by the end of 6, he decides he's not going to be an asshole anymore.
Well, here, let me interject. I agree with that to a point. Obviously, the prequel trilogies are necessary because it picks up at episode 4. So you need a 1, 2, and 3 at some point, or else it's just incomplete. There's no way around that fact.
But wasn't that part of the fun of not having them before, was you got to play those stories out in your mind, and that's part of the backlash of the prequels, is that it didn't play out like we expected it to?
No, I don't think that's the case. And I think you're in the minority because I think a lot of people wanted to know where the hell Darth Vader came from.
I don't know. Steve, you're the resident Darth Vader dude. You love Vader to the moon and back, so you tell me. Did you
That's
need...
no moon.
Yeah. Oh. I walked right into that one. Okay. Yeah, but Steve, you love Darth Vader. You are the Sith Lord of the podcast. So tell me, do you need 1, 2, and 3 in your life to appreciate Vader, or can you just love Vader for 4, 5, and 6?
I could totally deal with him in just 4, 5, and 6 without the backstory. I feel like I could. It helps, but I think that I could totally live without the pre-story of that totally, and just keep him as the bad guy the whole time.
I feel like a prequel trilogy is necessary, though. I feel like they could have done a different story with it, taken it somewhere else. I don't know where they could have taken it, but I feel like when you pick up with episode 4, you have to go back and do 1, 2, and 3 at some point.
Well, there's so much there. I mean, and obviously there's so much backstory. Like, where'd the Empire come from? Why is it like this? What's the Senate that they dissolved? Like, there's so many questions that you're like, what the heck? So that's why it's interesting. Episode 7 left so many open questions, but it's a lot of open questions in the past. So it makes me wonder, they're doing 7, 8, and 9, and the original statement when Disney bought Lucasfilm was that there were 2 new trilogies. Like, okay, so is 10, 11, 12 going to be the backstory of 7, 8, and 9? Are they going to do the same thing? Like, go back and have 10, 11, and 12 happen before 7, 8, and 9? Or, because there's a lot of those unanswered questions.
I think when they say 2 new trilogies, I think, is it going to be 10, 11, 12, or is it going to be the in-between, like Rogue One?
The Star Wars stories.
Are they going to count those as a separate trilogy? Is there going to be... how does that...
That's not how it was communicated at first, but it very well could be, considering now.
Because I feel like if it's going to become too much if they go up to 12, I think. I feel like having 12 Star Wars movies telling one long story is just going to become excessive.
I don't know about that, because I think the 2 sagas will be different stories. Because now that Darth Vader's gone, like the first 6 movies are the story of Darth Vader, and these are kind of like the aftermath and like new heroes, I think.
But it's always about the Skywalker family. How long can you hang on the Skywalkers until you're sick of it?
I mean, how many generations are there going to be? I mean, there is speculation about Rey being another Skywalker, which I feel like is more than likely going to be what is the end result. There's any number of possibilities, though, because we do not have definitive answer from Disney. But it is obvious that Ben Solo comes from the Skywalker family because his mother being Leia. It just becomes, how long can we take this one family through how many generations?
See, this is what we get for recording episode 3 before our second episode is up, because we discussed all that in our second episode. So we touched on.
Well, he doesn't know that, so
that's
he can speculate.
That's what I'm saying is that, you know, it's like weird the way we're recording and releasing these things, because you probably would have heard us discuss that. You would have had some definitive opinions or something, you know, because we actually touched on that very thing about who is Rey, kind of a thing. So
Oh, no, we introduced a plot hole because of releasing things out of order. I wonder where that's ever happened before.
how dare we? How dare we?
Now all we need is somebody to jam a lightsaber through one of our chests.
Yeah.
You know what? Fine.
Hey, you know, for a moment he liked it, and you know it, because it was very cold on that planet.
Oh, shut up. On that note, I think we're going to close up shop for this week. Want to thank everybody for checking out another episode of the Nerfherder Council.
Hey, before you get too far along there, I've got a bit of housekeeping notes here. I don't know if you've got it on your little piece of paper over there, hosted guy, but we do have at least a little bit of fun to be had on the show this week. For those listening out there, one of our esteemed podcast hosts, Mr. Steve, has a birthday that just took place.
Oh, yeah.
And in the spirit of giving, I happen to have a little gift here for you. That's right, our love of Lego Star Wars here. So here is your First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter Lego Star Wars polybag.
Oh, man.
Wow, rock on.
All 63 pieces of it.
Awesome.
Don't build it all in one night, man. Pace yourself.
There's 63 pieces in that little bag?
41, according to the bag.
I can't read.
Nice reading.
There's a 3 and a 6 on there.
It's what happens when you ad-lib. I'm sorry.
Well, actually, that's probably why I've been stumbling over my tongue all night, because when Steve texted us earlier and said, hey, episode 8's now coming out on December 17th, we're like, December 15th, dude.
Yeah.
Now you said, there's 63 pieces. 41. It's just not been a good date for the three of us.
Yeah, we're recording episode 3 before 2 is out. Numbers just aren't our thing.
No, it really is not. But yeah, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Hope it was a good one.
Oh, yeah. Spent the night sitting on the couch with my wife and my daughter, so couldn't have got any much better than that.
Nice and peaceful. Very. So
exactly.
No lightsabers through the chest?
Nope, not one.
Okay, great.
That's always a good night.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'd like to...
no chasms to fall down or anything. It's good times.
I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I'd like to tell my co-hosts to go themselves. In fact, I'd like to really emphasize that. Go yourselves.
Hey, this is going to take about 2 weeks to edit.
Han Solo is alive.
So apparently my birthday present to you was a nice little Lego set to build, and my brother's birthday present to you was about 3 hours of editing.
Well,
wow, you're being nice to me at 3 hours.
I warned you it was coming.
I was going to say it's probably going to be at least 5.
Even that's probably generous.
Probably.
and we're just talking about John's F-bombs.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
Just the F-bombs.
We try. There it is. Well, anyways, as we were saying, I want to thank everybody for checking out another episode of the Nerfherder Council. This one was a little crazy tonight, so hopefully it comes out good and everybody enjoys it.
I'll polish the turd, man. It'll
Yeah,
be all
right. I want to thank Jeff over there for coming out. Do you have anything that you need to plug? Like, don't you have a website for your acoustic stuff?
No, actually, my finances kind of went to the crapper, so I took that site down. But
Oh, okay.
I do have a Facebook page. I don't know the exact URL, but if you look up Jeff Wall, JEPHWAHL, there is a music page on Facebook. That's about all I have right now. There's not really anything super exciting on there, but...
people can hit you up personally and tell you that you're wrong about the prequels. So, bomb you with some hate or something. But, yes, my buddy Jeff, want to thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
We finally got all of our web stuff up and running, so obviously you can go to nerfherdercouncil.com to check out episodes of the show. We will have blogs up there. There's information on all of us. We've got, of course, the Nerfherder Council on Facebook. We also have our Twitter page, @NHC Podcast. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spreaker, as well as the Spreaker mobile app. We are on Stitcher, as well as their mobile app. iHeartRadio should be coming soon.
Minimum. Yeah, once we get 5 episodes up, that thing will be up and running.
Okay. We're looking at Podbean. That's a maybe. Google Play, I think, is a maybe.
Google Play is a go as soon as Google Play is a go. They're taking pre-applications right now. They haven't launched their podcast section yet.
So, yeah, anyway, there's any number of places that that you can go and find the Nerfherder Council. We appreciate the support as always. You can hit us up on any of the social media sites and let us know your feedback, what you like, what you don't like.
Feedback is huge. Please leave reviews on all of those spaces like we were talking about before.
Yes. Also, don't forget to tell Steve to go fuck himself about the Han Solo thing. AJ too. There's another one you can bleep out. So anyways, after this total cluster of an episode, thanks again, guys. Once again, I'm your host, JT, at Dog Pound Jedi. He's AJ.
At Drake Adams 579.
And he's Steve.
At editing my whole damn life away on this podcast.
Or JSteve1005. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus, me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my nerf herder.
You my nerf herder.
Yay!
Wow.
Hey, Annie! These are sparkly glory!